Hi, everybody. Welcome to Loyola. You're probably like, why are these people up here gabbing so much? But we have people who roll in sometimes a little late. We wanted to give them time to make it here by 12:30. So my name is Mary Beth Mudrick. I'm the Assistant Dean of Undergraduate Studies here at Loyola, and I'm going to be filling in on the first half of this presentation for our Dean of Undergraduate Studies, Dr. Mike Puma, who is not here today. And we have a panel of our presenters who are going to help us. They'll introduce themselves when they come up, but they're going to help talk about some of the academic resources, some academic challenges, some things that we see in our office on a pretty common basis to get you familiar with what we do and where you can go if you have questions about our role on the academic affairs side. Oh, I need my clicker. Okay, so the Office of the Dean of Undergraduate Studies, I like to call it, it reminds me kind of like of a Walgreens meets Minute Clinic. Because it's always hopping. It's always hopping with some sort of an event from, a call from a parent or a student who may walk in unexpectedly or be walked down from another office. And we handle things such as students who have questions about their schedules. We talk to students about possible medical leaves of absence. We talk about possible withdrawals. We congratulate them on making the dean's list when that happens. And there are hundreds, or at least over 400 of our students, our first year students made dean's list last year. We also talk about the honor code, and you're going to have a more in-depth conversation with Mr. Markley, who's going to come here and talk to you about this morning or this afternoon. And any questions related to academics in general. So we partner very closely with our Academic Advising and Support Center, and we have Tori Gu here to talk to you about that. And in terms of scheduling, in terms of trajectories, academic trajectories, what students want to do, what their parents want them to do, what their guardians want them to do, and we try to make sense of it all and have it happen through the Dean of Undergraduate Studies office. Oh, I should talk too about our first generation student success. Loyola now has almost 27% of our students, our incoming students, are first generation. This is a huge jump from 5 years ago. So we've gone up in the past 5 years about 7%. And we know that our incoming class this year it could be the biggest one we've seen of first generation students in 15 or 20 years. Overall, our first generation student population is about 20% at Loyola. We are part of an organization called First Gen Forward, which is a national organization that allows us to have in-depth conversations with colleagues across the nation and regionally about best practices for first-gen students at our institution. And we have grown this exponentially with the help of our campus partners in student development and our partners obviously within academic affairs. So we're very, very happy that we're able to serve our first-gen students in very special ways at Loyola. Okay, so raise your hand if you've ever heard of FERPA. Have you all heard of FERPA? Most of you heard of FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So we get a lot of calls in our office from parents. We get calls from students. And like I said, we have students walk in asking either to have us talk to parents or not to talk to parents about certain grades or certain things that have happened academically. This act allows us to work in tandem with parents and guardians once permission is provided, if it is provided, and it usually is. The reason we like our students to sign a FERPA waiver is because when we're working with a student and there is an issue academically, 99% of the time, it's easier when we're working with families. and having this conversation so they can fill in the pieces and the students can fill in the pieces about what's happening at Loyola, and then we're able to create a plan together with a lot of support and in an effort to really do what's right for the student. So there are individual FERPA waivers for different offices. And just because a student, and this is important, so if a student comes in and talks to us about something that's happening in September around one issue around grades and we have family involved, that FERPA doesn't necessarily apply to a totally separate issue that may be happening in the spring. Okay, so we would have the student sign another FERPA. Parents often get upset or a little irritated that this happens, but it is a federal law and we do have to abide by it. But most of the time, like I said, it's a seamless operation in our class to be able to have conversations that are robust and meaningful. Okay, now I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Justine Kaduri, who will talk to you all about the study learning support, tutoring, organizational consulting, time management, and all things that you're going to want to know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mudrick. Hello, my name is Justine Kaduri. I am the Director of Learning Support. Your students are here to learn, and I am here to support. That is what my role is. And I am so excited for your students to meet them today, as well as bring everyone back to campus. It has been so quiet this summer without the students. When I think about learning support, I think about its history, and it has had a fundamental change over time. Feel free to call out, we don't need to raise hands. Which institution do you think was the first institution in North America to have a peer tutoring program? Unfortunately, it's not Loyola. I should have prefaced it. Any guesses? Hopkins, oh, that would be another good one, but not quite. Very close, especially with that H in there. Harvard, yes, Harvard University. Anyone want to take a guess at the date? 1900s, also a really good guess, but 1636 was the date. 1636, Harvard University started a peer tutoring program because all of the classes at Harvard at that time were taught in Latin. And so when students were accepted into that institution and they didn't speak Latin, they had to learn before starting classes. So fast forward 350 years to the 1980s and 1990s, learning support was looked at as an intervention, if you will. Sometimes you may have heard it called as remediation, and it was something that was put into place if there was a need. Thank goodness we have moved beyond that. To 2005, 2006, you see a paradigm shift in higher education toward, as you will hear many times today, a student success model. We know in learning support, as learning support experts, the more all of our students engage and practice in materials, we know they will further develop critical thinking, innovation, and analysis, which is, of course, our goals here as educators. It is by no mistake that when you look at the average cumulative GPA as well as term GPA for students who access tutoring through the study, it's at a B+, a 3.1, which is really, really strong. We also know that that step from K-12 into higher ed is a big step. Oftentimes I'll go into McManus, which I know you've been hearing a lot about, and I'll explain to the students really what does it look like to be a college student. And I use the example of, let's look at calculus. There's a certain set of objectives you need to be able to do before you can go to Calculus 2. Some students take it in high school, and some students take it in college. Students who take it in high school get 180 days and 160 contact hours with their teacher and everyone in the class. The student who takes it in college gets 30 to 45 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, and 37.5 contact hours. That is a huge, huge difference. In college, your student is expected to sort of make up that time, but we're here to tell you, you don't have to do that alone. We have so many programs in place so that 10 hours outside of class for every course your student is in every week, they can come to the study, engage with somebody else who is not only a content matter specialist, but also specializes in how to learn the materials that they are progressing through as students. Very, very briefly, and I will be at the fair later today, so feel free to stop by and ask any questions. Here's just a few of the programs that we offer through the study. One, content-based tutoring. We have 110 tutors that cover the majority of 100 and 200 level classes and a significant number of the 300 level classes. Again, they're not only just content matter specialists, they have been trained to not only provide that content support, but how to learn that content, how to apply that content, how to use higher order thinking with that content. This program is so successful, and it is such a joy for me because this is where I get to work and see it happen every day. Our tutors go to tutors and sign up because it's such a great way to engage in the material. We offer Q&A workshops before assessments throughout the year, so it's last-minute questions that your students might have. There's a place to go in which they can get answers. We have academic and organizational consultants, and these consultants are trained in all things academic skills, note-taking, test-taking, how to organize your time management, prioritization. Your student, when they make an appointment, will have a one-to-one experience that they dictate what the goals are, and they work with somebody to create a plan for the semester, for the week, whatever they want. Some of the students I work with, we work once, and then I see them in the next couple weeks to make sure everything's working out well. Other students that I work with them twice a week, every week for the duration of a semester. Your student truly decides what they need and how best to progress through it. We also have a professional reading specialist, math specialist. There is an outstanding writing center here at Loyola, all the way from trying to figure out your topic through citations, and we've all been there with citations. Citations are citations, and so the writing center is there for all of it. The math department uses the study for their drop-ins in the evening. So we have a plethora of ways in which we want to engage with your student, and I cannot wait to meet all of them. And with that, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Victoria Gu.
There we go. Good afternoon. Welcome to Loyola. Thank you, Justine. As she said, my name is Victoria Gu. I am the director of Loyola's Academic Advising and Support Center. Quite a mouthful, and as you'll learn quickly in higher education, and especially at Loyola, we love our acronyms. So you'll hear us referred to a lot as AASC, and you can see that up there in our lovely office. So what does our office do? We are a professional advising office available to all undergraduate students, regardless of their major or minor, throughout their entire time at Loyola. Students are welcome to make an appointment, but primarily we operate on a walk-in basis. So during our usual hours, Monday through Friday, a student is welcome to walk in and get any question related to academics or scheduling or policies and curriculum answered. You'll see on this slide some of the major things that our office coordinates. The first is the math and the world language placement testing. Hopefully, most of your students have already taken these online placement exams prior to coming to orientation today. If they haven't, if it doesn't sound familiar, they haven't talked to you about it, please encourage them to do that, hopefully this weekend, because that is going to be very important when scheduling their classes, particularly in the first semester. We also coordinate the awarding of advanced placement or AP credit, IB credit, dual enrollment credit, which is credit for college courses taken while in high school, as well as A-levels if the student is an international student. We review all requests for transfer courses. So we do allow Loyola students to take courses away from Loyola, typically in the summer. And what we provide in our office is we will do a review of the school that they're looking to take those courses at, what the courses are, and then we can let them know in advance, yes, this course is going to transfer, you're going to get this amount of credit, and then this course will fulfill this requirement at Loyola. We also do everything and anything related to course registration. We'll talk a little bit about that more in just a minute. But we help students with changing their schedules, dropping and adding. If they have to withdraw from a course in a semester, we walk them through that process. We let them know what that means for their transcript, how it may impact graduation, and then how they can potentially make up those credits and requirements. We also coordinate specialized studies with departments, and those are really internships or sometimes an independent study that a student wants to take one-on-one with a professor. We are one of the key offices, along with the Office of the Dean of Undergraduate Studies, who can really explain everything related to our curriculum, as well as our policies and procedures. We can talk a student through all of the different majors and minors, all of the different requirements for those, regardless of what they're planning to do. And then we also provide graduation clearance and tracking to help make sure that a student is going to graduate within the time frame. All right, so what does advising look like over the years at Loyola? The key thing I want you to keep in mind when you're looking at this slide is that your student is well supported throughout their entire time at Loyola. Everybody gets a faculty advisor. In the first year, a student is going to work with what we call a Messina advisor, and that is one of their Messina professors. In most cases, their fall Messina professor. In some cases, it's the spring Messina professor. They are going to work very closely with that Messina professor over the first year to really understand all of the ins and outs of Loyola's curriculum, the core curriculum, different majors and minors, what they can do with those, and really help to learn when and how to utilize all of the resources that we have available. Towards the end of the first year, if a student is ready to officially declare their major, no student coming into Loyola, aside from nursing, which is our direct entry program, no other student has an official major yet. If a student has indicated an interest in a major, we call that their intended major. At the end of the first year, they can officially declare a major if they are ready to do so. At that point, we will transfer them over to a faculty advisor in their major area of study, and they'll continue to work with that faculty advisor in that major throughout their remaining time at Loyola. And that major advisor is really going to make sure that they're taking the major courses in the correct order. They'll talk to them about different careers that are available to those majors, help them find internships or recommendations or research opportunities and things like that. If your student is not ready to officially declare their major at the end of the first year, that's okay. They can request one additional semester, so the first semester of sophomore year, to kind of think about it a little bit more. And those students request what we call an exploratory advisor. So this faculty advisor is really going to work a little bit more deliberately with the student in the third semester, helping them discern what their passions and their interests are, how they align to certain majors and how those majors can go on to certain careers, and really get them connected with resources that can help with that process, particularly Loyola's Career Center, maybe do some interest tests and some skill set surveys and things like that. All right. So this slide will show you the three major components of Loyola's curriculum, quite literally in a nutshell for you. The first major component, the green acorn, if you will, is our core, our core courses. And we'll talk about core courses more on the next slide. But those are what some schools refer to as the general education or gen ed courses. At Loyola, we affectionately refer to that as our core curriculum. The second major component is obviously major courses, right? So most majors are anywhere between 10 and 12 courses in a student's area of interest. After that, the core and the major, come the free electives. So all majors have a certain number of free electives to work with. Some have more, some have less, depending upon how intense those major courses are. The one exception is students who are majoring in engineering. They don't really have any electives to work with because they're taking so many math, physics, engineering courses for their curriculum. Now, a lot of students will use those free electives towards completion of a minor if they're interested in a minor. Some of our more ambitious students will use them towards completion of a second major if they want to double major in two areas. And other students will just take several different courses in a lot of different areas to kind of explore and really kind of play around with different classes, college years. All right. So here is the big slide showing you Loyola's robust core curriculum. There are 15 courses plus 2 courses that focus on diversity and justice. We will have copies available at the information fair today if you'd like to stop by our table. Your student is also getting copies of this during their session this afternoon. As you'll see here, there are lots of courses in a variety of different areas. So we have some humanities courses, we have the natural and applied sciences, social sciences, language, and so on. And one of the reasons that Loyola has such a robust core curriculum is that we do not just want to educate your student in their major, their field of choice, right? We want to really work on developing well-rounded and educated individuals who have the ability to communicate well, both written and orally, who are able to analyze materials, to think critically, to appreciate different viewpoints and different points of view. So we're really exposing them to a wide variety of classes here. Now, some classes in the core are going to be dependent upon a student's major. So for example, take mathematics. Some majors require calculus, some may require statistics. Sciences, some majors may require biology, some may allow a student to take a physics or a chemistry course. Social sciences, the same way. All of our business students will take micro and macroeconomics. Psychology students will take psych courses. And then our humanities majors can kind of take a wide variety of social science courses. The one little caveat I will leave you with here, though, is that if you have a student who is enrolled in the university's overall honors program, they are going to complete the core curriculum through their honors courses in a little bit of a different way. Everybody else, regardless of major, will complete these 15 core courses. Not sure where to point this thing these days. There, is that my next slide? Yeah. Okay. So, there are 2 major things that a student has to complete in order to graduate with a degree from Loyola. The first is they have to take a minimum of 38 unique courses that are at least 3 credits each. The second is they have to complete a minimum of 120 overall credits. Now, our science majors will be able to hit that 120 credits with just 38 courses because they're taking a lot of labs. Same thing with our psychology or elementary education students who are doing some 1-credit field experiences. They'll be able to hit that 120 credits with 38 courses. Most of our other students, our business students, our humanities majors, will need 40 courses to hit 120 credits because the majority of their courses are 3 credits each. They're not taking those extra labs or 1-credit courses. So in order to graduate within 4 years, most students will do 5 courses in the fall, 5 courses in the spring for 4 years. Now, science students may choose to do a couple semesters where they're only doing 4 courses with labs. Some students coming in with a lot of AP credit or dual enrollment credit may also choose to do that for a couple of semesters. If your student is thinking about that, the one thing to keep in mind is to be considered a full-time student, and full-time is usually needed for federal financial aid, most scholarships, as well as to live on campus. The student has to be enrolled in a minimum of 12 credits each semester. Okay. Try again. There we go. All right. So what's been happening behind the scenes as we get ready for the class of 2029 coming in? All students are pre-registered already for at least 2 courses. One course is their Messina course. If they completed that Messina preference survey over the summer, most students got one of their top choices as long as it made sense with their intended major, if they gave us an intended major. The other course they are also pre-registered for is at least 1 humanities course. So that's the writing, the history, the philosophy, the theology, or the English. And then if they gave us an intended major, we have pre-registered them for those recommended intro intended major courses that were recommended for the first semester. Now, if a student has changed their mind with regard to their intended major, that's absolutely okay. Their advisor and my office will work with them to get them into the right courses for the first semester. Student athletes already have a full schedule, and that is because my office worked very closely with student athlete support services to make sure that we got those students the courses that they need around their practice schedules. Honor students also have more than 2 courses, probably pre-registered, as well as students who are majoring in the sciences or engineering or nursing, just because they have several major courses recommended for the first semester. So what's going to happen next? Starting next week, students are going to be contacted by that Messina advisor via their Loyola email. So please encourage your student to check their Loyola email next week and make it a habit of continuing to check that Loyola email. In that email from the Messina advisor, they are going to be inviting your student to schedule a virtual advising appointment. Most of them will take place via Zoom between June 23rd, which is this coming Monday, and July 14th. And that's going to be a little bit flexible depending upon your student's schedule and the Messina advisor schedule. So they're going to be inviting them to schedule that appointment, and at that time during that meeting, that advisor is going to discuss with your student the classes that they've been pre-registered for, if they have a major in mind, and if so, do those classes make sense? And then we'll suggest additional courses that your student may want to add to their schedule. If your student wants to make any schedule changes, they will help them during that time. After July 14th, don't worry, student is still supported, but they are going to be referred back to my office, the Academic Advising and Support Center, and we will continue to work with your student if they want to make any additional schedule changes from then through the end of the first week of classes, which is our drop add period. I will say that we received the bulk of advanced placement credit in mid-July. So at that time, again, my office will be reaching out via Loyola email to your student, telling them you are scheduled to receive AP credit or dual enrollment credit for these courses. Please contact our office for help adjusting your schedule if you happen to be registered for one of these courses already. All right, and here's the contact information as well as the summer hours for my office. We are centrally located right outside on the quad in Maryland Hall on the first floor. And again, we will be at the information fair later this afternoon if you have any questions or concerns or just want to chat about classes. Thank you very much for your participation. I participated. Thank you very much for your attention today. I know that was a lot of information, but just know that we will be giving this information to your student, and if you have any questions, we are always happy to help. Thank you. Yep. And I am now going to turn it over to Mr. Mark Lee, who is going to talk to us, if I can get his slide, maybe I'll leave it to him, about the honor code. Thank you.
Could you advance it for us? Great, thank you. The year was 1987. Preparations were underway for summer orientation at Loyola College in Maryland. I was a first-year student at that time, and I still remember it was session 3. We're in session 3 right now, aren't we? So, and that at that time, it was an overnight affair, a day and a half of orientation. I talked to my mom and I said, are you gonna come with me to orientation? My mom was an adopted daughter of a coal miner from Dunmore, Pennsylvania, and a very practical woman. And she said to me, Mark, your father and I have been orienting you for 18 years. You are the one who's in college now, and this experience is for you. You go. And so I went. And so I'm here 38 years later. I am Mark Lee. I'm the administrative moderator of the Honor Council, wear several different hats as an administrator, as affiliate faculty over the past 20 years here at Loyola. And as I share some information about the Honor Code and academic integrity with you, I channel my mom in realizing that this presentation is about how these topics affect your students and not a lecture for you about the intricacies of our Honor Code. I was a student at Loyola in 1990 when we as students worked together with faculty and administrators in partnership to create this document, the Honor Code. and a process to uphold honesty and integrity and to protect the value of our degrees. You have been teaching your sons, your daughters, your students to be honest people their whole lives, and I'm sure that they have been practicing that. However, let me offer just a few observations and advice as someone who's been working in the field of academic integrity for the past 18 years. First, it's easy to assume that my child would never be dishonest. Those who cheat or plagiarize are those who are barely making it, right? We might picture someone who is not engaged, someone who doesn't care about their work. I'm here to tell you that the student who is plagiarizing is just as easily the A or B student who is trying desperately to protect their grade, to prove themselves, who might plagiarize or use wording from AI because they think their own words just aren't good enough. I'm here to tell you that the student who is cheating can just as easily be the one who has always worked well at the very last minute to write papers and always turned out A's in the end. And yet, the expectations of the university might be much higher than those from high school, or there may be multiple papers or multiple projects due at the same time that the student has not prepared for. It might be a student who is overly committed with good and important things, but has not prioritized the work in that particular course. Difficulties in time management, as we heard about before, or in dealing with stress, as we'll hear about soon, may be magnified in the university environment. And desperation at 3 in the morning when a paper hasn't even been started can lead to some desperate actions. In short, I ask you to allow for the possibility that anyone, even your student, might be susceptible to making a mistake or being tempted to take a shortcut. And those shortcuts can lead to some severe consequences at Loyola, such as failure for an assignment or even failure for the whole course. Now, parents will often ask me, are you telling my students this? And the answer is yes, in several ways. One, they'll be asked to take a tutorial on academic integrity. This is an online tutorial. It'll be released the first week of classes. Secondly, their professors, one after the other, will talk about their expectations in class and on their syllabi. We will emphasize 3 things to your students when they return for fall orientation. 1, pay close attention to what is okay and what is not okay for an assignment, particularly when it has to do with AI. Some professors will have one policy, another professor will have a different policy. Or even within the same class, one professor might say, for this assignment, you're welcome to use AI. In fact, you're required to use it. We want to teach you how to do this properly. But for that assignment, no, we don't want you to look at it at all. Which leads me to the second point of having your student not be afraid to ask questions or ask for clarification. And number 3, to take responsibility for mistakes if and when they happen. For example, waiting for the last minute, to the last minute to do a paper. It is better to hand in nothing and speak to one's professor the day it's due, preferably before it's due, rather than be academically dishonest in a moment of desperation. The year is 2025, and we are the parents now. While our instinct may be to navigate, to warn, to fix, the truth is we are not the ones in college anymore. This next chapter belongs to them. What we can do is to keep reminding them gently and consistently that their worth is not measured by a letter grade, that shortcuts can have long shadows, and that integrity is not something that you turn on when it's convenient. It's a habit, and it's a reflection of who you are and the person you're becoming. Thank you for helping us set that example, and thank you for trusting us with this part of your student's journey.
Okay, so I'm Abby Hurston. I'm the Associate Director of the Disability and Accessibility Services Office. So even with all of these really supportive academic resources that we have at Loyola for all students, there are some students for whom there's one more important part of the formula for academic success, and that's students with disabilities who require accommodations. So that is where Disability and Accessibility Services comes in. We are a staff of 4 located on the first floor of Maryland Hall, right across the hallway from AASC. So we're pretty centrally located on campus. So what do I mean when I say accommodation? Like, what is a disability accommodation at the university level? So an accommodation is when the university has to modify or make a slight change in the way things are usually done to make sure that a student with a disability can participate in something here. So that might be a test, it might be a textbook, it might be lab equipment, it might be an off-campus trip. Accommodations are intended to address potential barriers in the environment for students with disabilities. So, a 50-minute time limit to take a test might be a barrier for a student with dyslexia that reads a lot slower. We're going to modify that time limit. A professor instituting a don't bring your laptop to class policy, maybe a smaller discussion-based class, that might be a barrier for a student that has dysgraphia, a disability that impacts handwriting and written expression. So we're going to modify the policy for them. And even though this is an academic focused session, I do like to point out we also make housing accommodations if a student needs that for on-campus housing. So if your student had a 504 plan or an IEP in high school or some sort of learning plan, they'll want to reach out to us over the summer if they think they might need some sort of accommodation at the college level. If they're not sure what they need, if they say, I know what I had in high school, but I'm not sure how that will translate into college, that is fine. Have them contact us over the summer. We can kind of brainstorm, what was helpful and necessary in high school, and what does that mean once you're in college. If your student has like a chronic health condition, a mental health condition that you think they may require some sort of accommodation, but they never had any formal accommodation in high school, that's okay. They don't need to have had a formal plan in high school in order to have accommodations in college. We know there's many conditions that really don't sort of appear till later in the teenage years, or maybe accommodation just wasn't necessary based on their high school experience. So they can still reach out to us though and request an accommodation. So how do you do that? There's 3 steps. You fill an application, you provide us with your documentation, and then if something's approved, you have a brief introductory meeting with someone on the DAS staff. So application, documentation, brief introductory meeting. So on our website is where you'll find the application, loyola.edu/DAS, and there's a tab on the very top left that says register. That's where your student will go online and say, hey, Loyola, here's what I require due to my disability. As far as documentation, that might be the 504 plan or IEP and any testing that was done that resulted in the plans. You can also, we have a form you can give to a medical or mental health provider or an educational evaluator to provide updated recommendations. If you have concerns about documentation or questions, don't let that stop your student from reaching out. A lot of times people might say, oh, I'm not sure if what we have is enough or if it's recent enough, but we don't want that to stop you from reaching out. So please contact us. We can often institute for some types of accommodations, like a temporary accommodation while you're getting updated documentation. We can also brainstorm ideas of where you might get updated documentation, whether that's back home or here in Baltimore. So please don't let documentation concerns prevent your student from telling us what they need. If you're dealing with the hesitant students, maybe a student saying, Mom and Dad, I don't need that accommodation anymore. I barely used it in high school. And you're thinking, I think you might. One thing that can be helpful is to let the student know it is fine to go through this process over the summer where you're still here to help, maybe with some of the paperwork. And then you are not required to use every accommodation, or any of them really, in every class. The student is in the driver's seat on which instructors they will notify and which accommodations they will use. Now, the accommodations can't be retroactive. A student can't choose to not notify their fall semester professors about the accommodations and then have a poor grade at midterm and then say, hey, DAS, can you ask my professor to let me retake those accommodations with my extra time? We can't do that, but at least things will be set up for them if they do choose to use the accommodations. And just letting them know that can sometimes be a helpful nudge to getting them, affiliated with our office. I was doing so well. Okay. Deadlines, like when should a student reach out to us? If your student's disability necessitates a housing accommodation along with an academic accommodation, there is a strict deadline for housing accommodations. That's July 1st. They have to let us know what they would need in the context of housing and have the supportive documentation in by July 1st. The reason we have that deadline is we need time to let our colleagues in residence life and housing know about these students so that their needs can be met before they start housing everyone else in the first year community. As far as most academic accommodations, there's no strict deadline, but we would recommend the student reach out in June or July, just in case we come back and say, hey, we need a little more information about this. It gives you some time to do that. But if, due to situations outside of your control, you're not able to get us everything until August, that is okay. It's just ideally you'll do it in June or July. So 2 last points I like to leave families with. One, at the college level, at the beginning of each new semester, if your student is approved for disability-related accommodations, they will have to take the initiative to let their professors know about the accommodations. They'll have to come to our office and tell us which professors they want notified. That's a big change from high school. In high school, there was usually a 504 or IEP coordinator or a director of learning support doing that for them. So they didn't really need to think about, I have to let my social studies teacher know this and my biology teacher know this. At the college level, they have to authorize that for each class. We make it easy. They can do it through our portal. They don't have to come into the office, but I do just like to let families know that's how it works at the college level. And then the last thing I like to let folks know is sometimes we get requests on the application from students who are asking for things that are really more akin to like a personal service or an academic service. So sometimes we might not approve that as an accommodation, but often that type of support can be found elsewhere through another office here that works with all students. So for example, we might have a student ask us for extra reminders about exams or help chunking assignments. The DAS office won't approve that as an accommodation and require faculty members to do that for your student, but we can help them get to Dr. Kaduri over at the study or our colleagues in the Writing Center for help, managing their time or breaking down assignments. So often, if a student's denied for something, don't panic. Have them come back to us and let us know what prompted them to reach out and request that accommodation. And more often than not, there's support here to address that concern. So again, accommodations are very individualized case by case, so I will be here afterwards. My colleagues, Salima and Taylor, will be at the info fair, and you can reach out to us over the summer if you have, if you want to talk to us about your students' unique needs. And thank you so much for your attention. I know this doesn't apply to all of your students, but Loyola really values the unique perspectives and experiences that students with disabilities bring to campus, so I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to the larger group. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mudrick to finish us up.
Hi again. So now I'm coming up as myself. So Dean Puma in our office, the Dean of Undergraduate Studies, is often more serious, very loving, very serious. And I can kind of go rogue, like people don't necessarily know what's going to happen. But we're going to have some fun here today, okay? And you know what? I just want to say, as we're talking to all of you and about your students, and this is anxiety provoking for some, not for all, whether this is your first time sending a child to college or this is your last or middle or whatever, I like to tell parents, and I tell all of my own students, everybody has a gift, we just open them at different times. And I think that's a good reminder to them if they ever are struggling. All right, now we're gonna have some fun. Our presentation here is called Defying Gravity. Oh, wait a minute. We have audio. Should I try it again? Oh, he's telling me to wait a minute, okay. But I'll tell you that the reason that we're calling it Defying Gravity is because we're going to put this in the context of Gen Z and what our students are and what they bring to college today. And you've seen all of this at home, I'm sure, or you've seen other students who are behaving the same way or struggling with the same types of issues.
That's right, defying gravity.
Thank you. Okay.
It's just,
It won't.
you're green.
They're gonna.
It's just, you're green.
Okay. This is the class of 2029. They're green. And gray. All right, so wicked challenges. The wicked challenges that we have with students, and this is not just at Loyola, this is across the board in higher education. We know that our students, especially post-COVID, are struggling with high levels of low self-esteem, with depression, with anxiety, lack of motivation, isolation, absenteeism in the classroom. They're feeling distracted. They feel overwhelmed. There's a stunning lack of engagement. Again, this is not for all. Low frustration tolerance. So you know that today when you meet with your student later on and you say, oh my gosh, we have to tell you, we heard this panel talk, and did you know you can go to AASC and you can review your schedule and blah, 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 and your student will say, you are annoying. You're annoying. I've heard this. You're annoying, and I know. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, okay. We can talk, and we know that students have more leaves of absence related to mental health issues. Sometimes they have to withdraw from college. Lack of emotional and academic and social preparedness. These are the things that we see every day, and these are also some of the reasons why a FERPA is good, so we can talk about them if they come to us. Okay, primary concerns. Absenteeism. Absenteeism doesn't necessarily mean that your student doesn't show up to class. This can also mean that your student can show up to class 10 minutes late, sit down for their attention span of 45 seconds, get up and go to the restroom or take a walk or get on the phone for a half an hour, and then come back to class. That's an absence. That student is not in class. The professor is not able to communicate the information that needs to be communicated. It's also not ethical for us to count a student as present and say, yeah, we're teaching you all this stuff, you got it. It's kind of like when you watch Netflix, when you get up to go to the bathroom, don't you tell someone, oh, just pause it. Pause it. We can't pause those classes. If you're missing a half an hour of a Netflix show that's 45 minutes, you're going to miss the bulk of that. So kind of think of it in those terms. Lack of accountability. We know that our students also struggle with responsibility and accountability sometimes. So going to a professor, I totally couldn't do this assignment. I couldn't do it. My roommate was on the phone with her mother just yelling. And this is my room, and I should be able to be in my room, but I can't get this done. Do you understand? This is why I don't have my paper. There are other things that the student could have done, right, to get the paper in. Underestimation of academic demands. Students don't know what they don't know yet. College is hard, so we do have a lot of free time, but we also have to teach our students how to structure this time so that it is efficient and meaningful. To be able to finish things according to timeline. Look at a syllabus and know this is what I have to do. These are the expectations. I didn't know I was going to have this much time and not have this much time. And the belief that class and homework are optional. Since COVID, we noticed an uptick in this, that, students during COVID who could shut off the monitor and shut off the sound, and they don't know what I'm doing, but the teacher's talking, but I've gotten up to have 6 bowls of cereal and talk to my friend on the phone and things like that. This is not optional. School is not optional. You need to come, you need to do your homework, you need to do these things, or you're gonna miss an entirely wonderful experience. Okay, so we often ask, where'd you go? Where did you go? You haven't been in class. These are conversations that we need to have early on so we can nip it. The other thing that you can say to your student is, students are going to get sick. They get sick a lot, the first time they're at college. The cold, the flu, these things that happen. Use your absences wisely. Don't skip classes and then need absences later on, because you're gonna need to be there to pass the class. Okay. In 2015, these are some of the reasons that students said they weren't going to class if they missed. Hanging with friends, they were too tired, recreational activities, studying, or the weather, whether it be inclement or nice. These are the excuses that they gave to professors. In 2024, another study was done and people figured out, okay, these responses are a little bit different. Physical illness, chronic illnesses, depression, family and relationship issues, too tired from work. Some of our students have 1, 2, or 3 jobs while they're in college. Boring teachers. This is not, again, Loyola data, because we are not boring, ever. This is national data where the other people are. Okay, class is too early. Attendance is not required. So if a professor says, I don't take attendance, that doesn't mean, I don't have to go. Okay? All right. You've all heard the expression, we're going to meet you in the middle, right? Who's heard that expression before? Just raise your hand. We'll meet you in the middle. We're going to meet you halfway. We're not. We're not meeting them halfway. Our expectation is that they're going to stretch a little farther. You have to push yourselves a little bit more. We're going to guide you and we're going to support you, but we're not going to enable you to initiate and sustain patterns that aren't healthy and conducive to academic growth.
Can't I make you understand? You're having delusions of grandeur.
Okay, a delusion of grandeur here in this situation. We talk about absence. I've talked about this quite a bit. But if a student goes to a professor at the end of a semester, after having missed 3 months of school and classes, and said, hey, guess what? Hey, girl, hey. Here's all my homework for the past 3 months. And the midterm I didn't take, I want to take it in July, okay? Because I think you're probably off then, so it'll give me some more time to study. And all the quizzes that everybody took that you've only made one version for, I'm here tomorrow at 10, but I totally have to get a Starbucks first. So I think I'm going to come to your office at 10 o'clock and take these exams or these quizzes. That's not going to happen either. It's not going to happen. Okay, I parallel this to if you're at the grocery store and your family has given you a list of things to get, right? And they say, okay, you need to get cereal, you have to get milk, I need yogurt, I need shampoo, I need Doritos, whatever it may be. And you're at the store and you have gotten everything already, and then you're in the checkout line and they have put the last item in the bag, and you get a text from somebody in your family. Oh, hey, don't forget cheese. Aren't you ready to flip out? Yeah, but it keeps going. Then you walk to the car. Don't forget eggs. And I want chocolate chip cookies too. It's that type of feeling that professors are going to get if your student hands them all the work at the end of the semester not having been there. Okay. underestimation of academic demands can really set a student into a downward spiral. We're all about preserving dignity and self-worth in this process. We know that things can go awry, but we want them to be prepared so they don't feel like this. All right, resilience and durability. This is actually my favorite thing to talk about. We talk about being resilient, right? You've heard Gen Z, they're so resilient. They've had 8,000 things happen, but they pick themselves back up and they're good. They're good. But when things happen and you fall down and you have to pick yourself back up, that requires a lot of energy. If you have to keep being resilient, you're going to keep expending energy. So my challenge to students is that we make them durable. And how we make them durable is we give them all the information they need about the resources at Loyola, and we're all resources at Loyola, and they essentially build a shield that will be able to be held up, and when challenges come their way, they can withstand all this stuff. They don't have to fall down and get back up again. It's just bouncing off this shield. Isn't that better? I know, I think it's so smart. So have them build a shield. Give them this visual. You want a shield. You want to keep falling down. You don't want to use all this energy because you have to study and go to class. Okay. Oh, darn it all. Okay, hold on, going back. Okay, so how are our students going to defy gravity? Through these wicked opportunities. Everything that I just went over with you. They're going to participate. They're going to become leaders. They're going to use the Career Center. They're going to use the Writing Center and the study. They're going to communicate. They're going to reflect. They're going to read the syllabus. They're going to go to class. They're going to go to office hours because these professors want to know who our students are. And one day, your student is going to need a letter of recommendation. And when you go to a professor, that professor needs to know who the student is to write a great letter of recommendation. Professors want to have relationships with students. They want to cultivate relationships. Okay. Finally, I think maybe we need batteries.
Together we're unlimited.
And
Everyone deserves a chance to fly.
and thank you so much. I don't know if we have time for questions. We have 6 minutes for questions. So we will all be up here. I think someone's going to help us, or I can take a microphone. I can do that. You want to help? Okay. So if you want to ask us some questions, then we'll hang around after for a few minutes to ask anything, maybe a more personal or something that you need to know. Thank you.
Just a generic question. So if a student is not an honor student by a fraction of GPA, even though it was in high school, is he going to be missing out in Loyola? Is he going to be access to everything that Loyola has to offer?
Commuter student.
Sorry, so yes, so in high school, there were first honors, second honors, and then they had to take they got emails saying, try again here, and then we already know that some already got letters for Messina or room in the, so my question is generically, are students that are not in the honors class, are they going to be able to have the Loyola experience, the Messina, the services, everything that we came for to decide at the first place? And so it's, no, I'm not mean to put anybody on blast, but we're here, so we care a lot about our students. Thank you.
Yes, so your student will be able to have all the opportunities that any other student who's in any other program would have. Sometimes they're different opportunities, but with our Messina program and the enrichment hour that accompanies this program, this is designed to have students become fully immersed in the campus community and outside of the community. And in addition to that, we have over 150 clubs, I think, is 150 clubs here at Loyola. And and everything is well advertised on the bridge. So what I would say is make sure that your student is looking on the bridge for information that's coming to all students. Register for the things that are of interest. Attend things that are going on campus, like the campus activities fair, the career fairs, and things like that. There's so much. Obviously, we can't name it all, but getting to know professors and getting to know administrators these are key factors in enhancing a sense of belonging for all students. And you have one student coming, not twins. We have a lot of twins too. One student, okay. So, and they can always come to our office and ask, and we can direct appropriately. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have two questions, but they're short. Regarding the FERPA, if we have a power of attorney, do we give you a copy of that power of attorney as well for your files? That's my question. And then the other one, I believe the lady in green mentioned that the deadline for the IEP or the accommodation is July 1st, but it included a housing. Is there another deadline for just academic? Thank you.
There's no firm deadline for academic, but we don't say, okay, you have to ask us for things like testing accommodations or note-taking support by a certain date. Housing is the one that has the strict deadline because we need that to arrange the accommodations. That being said, it's best if you can start the process now in end of June, early July, just so you have enough time to work with us if the documentation your student provides isn't enough. So, and I don't know if anyone else wants
FERPA?
to answer the FERPA.
So the FERPA form is, I'm not sure if I fully understand your question, but when a student comes to our office, one of the first things we have them do is sign a FERPA. If this is going to involve a leave of absence, if this is going to involve a conversation with a parent about a class, parents are not to call professors or the president and things like that. So we keep our own FERPA that your student signs in our records. And then, like I said before, once we have that on file, if we're discussing the same incident or challenge or situation, that FERPA would apply. But if the student goes to a different office or a different circumstance arises, then a new FERPA would be signed in order for us to communicate.
The university does not recognize a power of attorney?
No.
Because the power of attorney case, since they're already an adult, because we can't help them or assist them in something, right? So this is to avoid that. So my question is, well, if let's say X student can't sign or for whatever reason complete a new FERPA, the power of attorney legally can give the parents or guardian that access.
So if a student, we've had situations if a student's been in the hospital and things like that, where this would require a more one-on-one conversation to see who's helping us navigate and what the recommendations are. So, yeah.
And that's the power of attorney. The power of attorney prevents that.
Yeah. In my history here at Loyola, that has not happened, where we had to use, or a family had to use power of attorney. But we have hit the pause button on certain things if a student's in the hospital. And if there's a health or safety emergency, then we bypass FERPA. I mean, if there's a health and safety issue, then parents are notified immediately. Yeah.
I think we should probably call it since it's 1:30. So your next session is in the fourth floor of the student center. Yep, the programming room. So if you go out these doors, make a left, go all the way down the hall. Before you get to the dining center, there's an elevator and stairs that'll take you up to the 4th floor. We'll hang around if anybody has any extra questions, and then we are all also at the info fair this afternoon. Thank you.